Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to the Ginetta X Project Cars Esports Finals. We're going to be bringing you coverage of these finals over the next 2 days, both today with the PS4 and Xbox, and then tomorrow we're going to be showcasing the PC finals. And today we're going to be kicking things off with the PS4 finals. And what you're seeing right now is the 15 drivers that have made it to the final, just going out for a 10-minute qualifying session, which will organise the grid for the first race. We'll be doing 2 races in each of these finals, both with a 10-minute qualifying beforehand. The races will be 15 laps long. The first is at Alton Park Island, and then the second will be at Brands Hatch. And joining me here today is one of the people who helped to coordinate this final along with Ginetta, and that is our Project Cars Esports manager, Joseph Barron.
Hello, Yoki.
Hello.
Did you even say your own name? Was I not paying attention?
I didn't say my own name. Yes, sorry. I have of course Yorkie. I have of course Yorkie065 will be playing, bringing you the coverage here today, along with Joe.
A brilliant introduction there, forgetting to introduce yourself. It's a perfect start. You wouldn't have it any other way.
It was good, but yeah, we should probably talk about the drivers that are here racing in this final. Just a quick flick up through the list, and we'll run through those together. So probably, hopefully, some familiar names that a couple of people will notice.
Yeah, I think the first thing we should point out for the people watching the stream is that we have had one person drop out who, at the very last minute, just had other. I think he had some work commitments, unfortunately, that meant he couldn't be here today. That was STL Rotax. So, as I say, he's dropped out. Unfortunately, he's been replaced by the driver who came 16th in qualifying, which is VP Okaroka, who, although he came 16th in qualifying, the qualifying was so tight that he was still within 3/10 of the guy who was first in qualifying. So I think that, combined with the fact that he was our Paris Games Week champion in 2015, we certainly, although it's a shame we've lost Rotax, we've gained someone who equally knows what they're doing. So it should still be, he's not going to be hanging around at the back for very long, I don't think. And from what I've heard, he's been practicing just as much as the rest of these other guys, and he's only known since he was doing that just in case he got a seat as well, because he only found out last night that he was going to be taking part. So yeah, apart from that, this is all the names that you've seen on the website. So we have, who have we got? Where's my list gone? TS Racing Zoki, who was first in online qualifying. Unity Smokey was second. TS Racing Racer for Team Shark as well, he was third. Got some members of the esports and cars team. Eol was the quickest, he came fourth in online qualifying, followed by Atho of Team Shark Racing, Joker of Team Stick Racing, ODB of esports and cars. I guess we're going to pronounce the next guy's name Magical, I think we're saying.
Yeah.
We're going with that. We've got him there as well.
Sorry if it is wrong.
We've got Isaac from SRT, we've got Tijni, we've got Biz from Unity, and then some more esports and cars drivers. We've got Zaxby TV, we've got Key, we've got driver R1, and then Okaroka rounding it out after the unfortunate timing of SDL Rotax not being able to make it for this event. But yeah, all familiar names, all guys who've done well.
Yep.
All guys who've done, these are all guys who are known from our Nvidia series, our Logitech series. Some of these guys do really well in our weekly ESL events as well, so it's a really strong lineup.
Yep.
I'm going to fiddle with some audio, so you can talk for a minute.
Okay, that's fine. But yeah, it's very interesting, especially seeing that all these guys were within 0.3 of a second as well, separated the top 15 in the qualifying event for this final. So very, very impressive pace by these drivers, and hopefully it's going to be extremely competitive with the field being so close as well. And hopefully we should see some good racing action, but it'd be interesting to see how the drivers actually handle the racing part of this final, as I know a lot of these guys from competing in the LCS and NCS, which is obviously time trial based. So you're kind of on your own, and racing is very much different to just hot lapping by yourself. So it'd be interesting to see where people's strengths and weaknesses lie in those two different environments.
Yeah, I think when we've done live racing events in the past, like I mentioned Paris Games Week from 2015.
Yeah.
I think what we saw there was that obviously the guys who are great hot lappers were still quick. That's just speed. You can't get rid of speed. But what I think we saw in addition to that was some guys who do okay in hot lapping, like Okaraka, who actually won that event. They came to the fore just perhaps by being a little bit calmer, just not quite having the nerves that some of the other guys had maybe. And maybe that does come into play, I think. It'd be interesting to see whether this similar kind of thing happens again, or whether we're going to see the guys who were at the top of qualifying be at the top of the race. But it is so open with the top 16 guys who qualify for this, only 0.3 of a second between them in qualifying around Snetterton.
Yeah.
So if we get a similar split here, I mean, qualifying could be really, really tight. And that, if the guys can be that consistent at that kind of pace during the race, then we definitely could see a very tight field spread during the race the whole way through.
Yeah, well, just having a very quick look now. Now, fastest time is by TS Racing Zocchi at the moment with a 1:17.1. Just under 2 tenths was Magical behind him. And then TS Racing Atho is just over 2 tenths down. But it's less than a second between the field, just under 9 tenths separating the guys at the moment. And one thing that we haven't actually talked about yet is the car.
Yes.
Ginetta.
You're very familiar with Ginetta's, I believe. You're having not driven the GT3 car, but you have. Was it a Junior you drove?
The G40 Junior, yeah.
In the maybe it was absolutely bucketing it down. So maybe it's not that representative of an experience. But yeah, I guess you're better positioned to talk about the car than I am.
Yeah. So we're going to be using the Ginetta G55 GT3 car. It's very commonly used by Ginetta in a number of GT3 series. It's not used in the Blancpain series, unfortunately, but it can be found in the British GT Championship and a couple of others dotted around the globe as well. It's a very, very successful car built by Ginetta, and yeah, it's a pretty damn good car. It doesn't have all that much top speed compared to the other GT3 cars, but it certainly makes up for it in the handling. It's very, very light. It's extremely good on the brakes, and it's very light and nimble, so it's good through the corners. Currently just watching Key drive around here. He's currently holding 6th position. But
those characteristics you mentioned as well will definitely suit these kind of tight and twisty UK tracks that we've got for this event, with particularly Alton, but also with Brands as well. They're not neither of them are, I guess, a power circuits really. There's one, I guess, long-ish straight at Brands Hatch. Back straight's kind of long.
Yeah.
But particularly at Alton, it's all about getting through the corners and carrying momentum around the lap. So it's the kind of ideal car for these situations. And you would expect that, given how well the car has done in GT3 and Ginetta's experience in general at the UK circuits.
Yep. Definitely, but yeah, we're going to be using this for all 3 finals. The G55 GT3. They used the GT4 car, I believe, for the qualifying event.
Yes.
Yep.
So we wanted to kind of give people a flavour of the different things that Ginetta can offer. So we thought it would be a cool idea to start out with the GT4 car, which runs primarily in the Ginetta Super Cup, which is a one-make series.
Yep.
And a lot of the rules we're running with fixed setups and things like that we're using in this event are based on the Super Cup rules. But then we wanted to kind of, these guys know what they're doing. They're all very familiar with the GT3 class from ESL events and stuff like that as well. So we wanted to up the ante a little bit for the finals.
Yep, definitely. And one other thing that we haven't actually talked about is actually the prize pool for these finals. The winner will be taking away the prize of £1,500.
Pounds.
It is pounds, yep. £1,500, and also for those who entered into this esports cup, there is a chance to win one of 3 GoPros, which will be announced at a later date. But yeah, £1,500 for each of the winners of these finals, and we're now actually coming towards the end of the qualifying session as well, just in the dying seconds, and it looks like that TS Racing Zocchi will be tight. Taking pole, and just having a quick look through. So yep, Zocchi leads from driver R1, Atho, Magical, EO, ODB, and then just quickly going down to the bottom. Tijani TS Racing, but it looks like they're all within 0.8 of a second, so it's going to be an awfully tight field as we come to the starting grid for the first of these 3 finals. And we'll just be hopping into the spectator mode in just a second as the first race gets underway. Hopping into that spectator cam now. Let's see if we can pick up anyone making some early moves. There's been some contact already. Zaxby TV has had a spin somewhere along the line off the start and has dropped down to the back of the field. There's another spinner there. TS Racing Zoki, he's had some drama in the first corner as well. There's more contact between a number of drivers further up the field as they try and run down through the first couple of turns. So some pretty dramatic start to this race, picking up ODB at the moment, who's having a look down at 3rd place coming into the hairpin. But it looks like that Atho and Magic have had a fantastic start so far in this final, with Atho leading from Magic, and then Car EO in 3rd place, ODB in 4th, Isaac running in 5th, Biz, then TS Racer, Joker, Tijani, Okaroka, and you can see the rest of the drivers there still battling away. There is no damage in this race, nor is there tyre wear or fuel usage. They're all in the same setup, the default setup as well. So it's a pretty even playing field for these drivers, but such is the pace between all these guys being so close that it could be pretty difficult for drivers to catch back up, as it looks like Tijani is going to be going defensive here to Okaroka in 10th place, the battle for 9th, coming into the final turn to come to the end of the first lap. And it looks like that Okaroka isn't quite close enough just yet to make the pass on Tijani just in front of him, but he does get pretty close in the braking zone for that first turn and gets a pretty decent run through it as well. I don't really think there's much of an overtaking opportunity coming into the long left-hander, but he's going to tuck underneath the rear wing and try and get a good exit coming out of here using the full width of the road. And this is where we'll pick up a little bit of a slipstream. This will probably be his best opportunity. He's trying to dive down the inside, coming into the hairpin. He's going for the move. Tijani gives him room, going side by side as they run through the hairpin. A little bit of a squeeze there on the exit. This is bringing up 11th place behind them as well, up into play. And it actually looks like they've gained a couple of positions somewhere along the line with a couple of other drivers running off wide, but they're still going side by side. It looks like Okaroka is still behind Tijani for the moment, but this has now become a 3-way fight. Very, very close, almost contact between the drivers there. But Okaroka still trying to push himself up into what is now 7th position rather than the previous 9th that it was, right underneath the rear wing of Tijani just in front of him. He's looking very, very eager and looking like the faster of the 2 drivers at the moment, wanting to get past. Coming down into the final corner, does he go for the move down the inside? He doesn't. He tucks back underneath of Tijani just for the moment. We're following through once again, but there's a train starting to form behind Tijani now as they come to start the 3rd lap. It looks like Tijani's taking a wider line there coming through the first turn. Okaroka a lot tighter to the apex coming through that, and he'll be hoping to repeat what he tried to do on the previous lap and try and get a good run coming out of this long left-hander here down towards the hairpin. This time both cars using the full width of the track, and it's now actually Okaroka is coming under pressure from Unity Smoky, but there isn't going to be any real way for them to find a way past either of the drivers at the moment. You can see that behind them as well, Key is having to go defensive to Zaxby TV. A number of drivers, very, very close racing between all these guys at the moment. And we'll quickly take a look up further up the field and see how the battles for the lead are forming. It looks like Magic is still very, very close to TS Racing Atho, who currently holds 1st position at the moment. The best lap time from Magic so far is a 1:17.942, so pretty close to their qualifying times, just under a second, roughly around about 0.8. And looks like Magic is trying to pressurise Atho at the moment in this early stages, using quite a bit of runoff there on the exit of the first turn, coming down through turn 2 and into the long left-hander. Turn 3 now, staying in the slipstream in that dirty air. This is where he'll be hoping to get a decent run, but he's a couple of car lengths back, so it'll be pretty difficult for him to try and make the move down the inside coming into the hairpin. But it looked like TS Racing Atho was a little bit defensive there. It's very tight to the inside of the corner. And that actually slowed him down a little bit, has allowed Magic to close up a tiny bit onto the back of his car. Now coming into the chicane, quite a tricky section, but with the lightness and the agility of the G55. Driver's able to navigate that with some relative ease. You see them now coming into the high-speed right-hander, still fairly close between these two drivers, braking at roughly a similar time. Taking the slightly wider line was Magic there, trying to open up the entry to the corner a little bit more than Atho was. Now coming into the final turn. Again, taking relatively smooth, similar lines, using the runoff there on the exit as they come to start a new lap. This is going to be the start of lap 5. You can see that the order at the moment with Afo still leading, a gap of less than a tenth to Magic behind, so very, very close at the top there. We'll keep an eye on these two guys for the moment just to see how they're doing. But Joe, what did you make of that start and the first 5 laps of the race?
I think with these guys having done so much time trial racing...
Oh, there's a little bit of contact there between Atho and Magic. I think Magic locked up the brakes a little bit coming into the hairpin, just bumped the back of Atho's car, but they're still following each other for the moment. Atho still leading from Magic, so no real harm done there. With damage off, that wouldn't have really cost them too much either. But yeah, Joe, you were saying.
Yeah, we have I think in the field we have a mixture of some guys who know each other very well from the time trialing stuff, but also from league racing they do together. And then there are a few guys in there who are less well known, maybe haven't raced with these guys quite as much. So I think what you'll find is a lot of these guys will be able to know each other a bit and know roughly how they're going to behave. And then you have that kind of random element in the mix of people they're less familiar with.
Yep.
So I think the first race it was inevitable that there was going to be a little bit of door banging, whatever you want to call it, in the first couple of corners. But hopefully now these guys have learned what they're about a little bit more and know roughly what to expect going into race 2. And having that second race, and you know, we're giving out points in these races, and so there's an opportunity for guys in the second race to recover who've had a difficult start. But I think so far I'm kind of, yeah, it's an interesting mixture of where the guys are placed at the moment. I didn't think we're being told that we're saying stop saying Magic like Magic. His name is Michael in English, so we'll start calling him We'll start calling him Michael.
Yep.
We didn't know that in advance, but now we do. Yeah, I'm surprised to see him up there that far. He was one of the names I didn't know quite so much about, but he's really pushing Atho hard, so that's really interesting to watch.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's close throughout the field like we expected as well after those qualifying results.
Yeah, I just picked up Okaroka in 13th place. He's going to drop down a whole bunch of positions somewhere along the line. We didn't see that on camera. Obviously, it's happened off cam, but it's allowed Zocchi and also Isaac to close back up onto the rear of the field as well. So there's quite a big train forming between a whole bunch of drivers. Zaxby TV, after his very early spin right off the line, has got himself back up into 10th place. But there seems to be forming behind Car Key at the moment. He's holding on to 9th, just coming through the final turn there. But I imagine these guys will be very eager to try and find their way past. We'll work our way back up through the field to Smokey in 8th place. Tishney still holding on to 7th. It was Smokey who was pressurising the rear of Okaroka before, when Okaroka was trying to get himself past Tishney up into 7th, but wasn't quite able to make it work. Joker is currently holding a steady 6th. There's a little bit of a gap between Tishney and Joker, so he's not really got too much pressure coming from behind. He's relatively close to the guys in front as well, so he's in a pretty good opportunity just in case TS Racing Racer and Unity Biz have a slight mistake or a slight coming together somewhere along the line. And then Car EO is in 3rd place. He seems to have dropped back from Michael. Sorry for calling you Magic for the start of the stream. But yeah, he's currently holding 3rd with a bit of space both in front and behind him. But it looks like that Michael is very, very eager to try and get past Atho at the moment. You can see that. I had a little bit of a look at Atho in the final turn, and Atho having to go defensive, taking a tighter line, so that would have compromised him a little bit coming through that final turn. But Michael wasn't close enough to really capitalise on that at all and try and present himself coming down into the first turn. So I think his next best opportunity is probably going to be a hairpin just coming up ahead.
Atho's looking very calm at the moment at the front, you have to say. This guy is just... Michael's just been completely sat on his gearbox from lap 1 and hasn't budged at all.
Yeah.
He's probably quite frustrated at the front there, wondering what he has to do to shake him off, but at the same time, you've got to say he's dealing with it very well.
Well, they're doing very, very quick lap times. At the moment, it looks like magic. Michael has got the fastest lap time so far of 1:17.261, so that's basically on par with their qualifying laps. Of course, with no fuel, yeah, it looks like that Michael's actually got a pretty good, decent switch back there, but wasn't quite able to pull up alongside. He probably timed it just wrong and had to back out of the throttle to avoid making contact with Affo.
This is where he needs to be smooth here through Druids and maintain his line himself up. Going down into Lodge is probably his best chance, but the cars being so similar with the default setups and with the narrowness of the track, it's going to be a huge challenge for him to get through. But if he's asking some questions, and hopefully eventually he might get the answer he wants.
Yeah, hopefully if he just keeps trying to apply this pressure that he's doing on Atho at the moment, he may eventually find a small crack to slip himself through. But like you've been saying, Atho so far has been holding his nerve and holding on to that lead despite this immense amount of pressure, as Michael's so close coming through the long left hand of that. And coming down, Affo going very defensive, but then moving back along. But Michael's trying to look around the outside. He might get a little bit of a switch back here, get a decent drive coming out, which will present him with himself with an opportunity to make the move down, coming into the chicane. Michael's going for it now, looking down the inside of Affo. Will they be the later of the late breakers? It looks like Atho's just about managing to hold on to it at the moment, but he ran a little bit deep there, and he's now being compromised coming through the entirety of the chicane. Michael's got a little bit of a switchback, but once again isn't quite able to pull himself up alongside Atho. Atho's still holding on to the lead for the moment in this race. Michael looking left and right, trying to find a way past, but Atho just holding his line, holding his nerve, and is able to hold on for the moment for another lap, providing he could be clean coming into this final corner, which he is on the brakes rather beautifully and hooking up that apex on the inside, getting a decent drive coming out. But Michael for sure is trying to really apply the pressure and see if he can get himself past Atho at some point in this race, and he's only got 5 laps to do it as we're on lap 10 at the moment, so he's running out of time, and it looks like he's very, very eager. And like I say, it looks like he's got a fairly decent run, trying to pick up the slipstream. Affo is once again looking to be going defensive, but then moves across left over, giving a little bit of room there on the outside, but not enough for really Michael to basically place his car in. So he's making it very difficult, defending pretty aggressively at the moment. And this time, Michael didn't have the drive coming out to make the move.
Is Eol beginning to catch them slightly? I didn't notice him in the background actually until just now. That last camera shot, he just seemed to come into shot there again.
Yep.
Just for the first time in a little while. Maybe this is starting to slow these two guys at the front down slightly. Do you want to have a quick look at lap time, see if Pedro is?
Let's have a look. Yeah, it looks like he gained 2 tenths on the 2 guys in front of him on the previous lap. So that gap is starting to shrink. But even still, despite these 2 battling, they're still throwing in some pretty solid lap times. Very low 1:18 at the moment. So yeah, that was with the drivers going side by side, and now they're back, basically following one each other. They're back down into the mid 117s, with Michael using quite a lot of the runoff there on the exit of turn 1, using that Grasscrete area. Looks like he's getting a pretty decent run coming through here, but so is Affo. Not sure whether he's quite close enough. Once again, Affo having to go defensive coming into the hairpin, and then moves back across. Slight lock up there by Michael, but he may get again the decent drive coming out of the hairpin. He'll be trying to pick up the slipstream here, coming down towards the chicane, and it looks like Michael was going to go for a little bit of a look, but
he's going to have to pull out of that slipstream so late to maintain the momentum. You could see as he pulled out there, he just lost a bit of his forward momentum as he came back out into the undisturbed air. So
yeah,
he's going to have to be a bit of a dive bomb, I think, if he's going to make it stick through there.
Yeah, but it looks like Affo's been very, very late on the brakes coming into that chicane as well. It's the second time he's run a little bit deep, and that's actually Michael's got a pretty decent run here coming down towards the final turn. Once again, Atho going defensive, trying to defend that inside line. Very, very close racing between these two. There's barely a gap between the two, as Michael's having a little bit of a look coming down the inside. Is there going to be contact there as he's trying to work his way in? I think he's just bumped Atho out wide a little bit. Atho's gone onto the grass and has rejoined behind. Michael was there on the inside. I was wondering if Atho squeezed him a little bit and didn't quite give him the room that Michael was wanting. There was a tiny little bit of contact, but these two have swapped positions for now. It'll be interesting to see whether Afo will be able to close back up onto the rear of Michael and see if he can try and get his way past. But for the moment, Michael has managed to get himself up into the lead, which he's been aiming to do for, well, since the start of this race, really. So just watching him come out the chicane now. I'll take a look back down the field as Kyle is still closing up onto towards the back of these guys, setting a pretty similar lap time, near enough identical, only hundredths of a second between EO and Afo on the previous lap. Unity Biz is holding on to 4th position at the moment from TSR Joker 1. Then we've got Unity Smokey coming through in 6th place. These guys have spread out a little bit more. Tishni still holding on to 7th. And then TS Racing Racer is down in 8th place. And then Kart Key is holding on to 9th place. And it looks like that's Car ODB behind him. So he swapped places with Zach Speed somewhere along the line. Zach Speed actually looks like he's retired from the race. He's now in the pit lane.
That's a strange one, given that we have damage and failures and everything turned off. I'll have to find out from him afterwards what's happened there.
Yeah. Possibly some frustration, as obviously the start that he had was far from ideal with the spin. There may have been a bump somewhere along the line, but Oka Rocker currently holding on to 14th place at the moment. Driver R1 just in front of him. And then TS Racing Zoki currently holding 13th place at the moment. From Isaac in 11th. He's looking pretty close to Carl ODB just in front of him. And may actually have a little bit of a look coming down in towards the chicane, but I don't think he's quite close enough to really make the move. So Carl ODB holding on to the 10th place for the moment. He's actually gone and dropped back from Car Key here as well. It's weird saying Kaki is obviously Kaki is SDL driver in the PC.
BAM driver.
BAM driver. He used to be SDL, so has obviously made the switch. But yeah, he races on the PC side, so they've got very, very similar names. Just jumping back up to the front to see Atho, still a fairly similar gap to Michael as it was previously after those two swap places. So at the moment it doesn't really look like Atho is able to close up onto the back of him, although he's taken a 10th out of him on the previous lap. So that gap is coming down, but very, very slowly. There's only just a couple of laps. We're on the penultimate lap at the moment as they come through the chicane for the second to last time.
The interesting thing, I guess, when these two guys were racing closely earlier, when Atho was in front, was there were certain places where he was just enough quicker to stay ahead of Michael in certain sections of the track. So if he can make it back up to him and he can be that much quicker in those same sections again, he's probably got a better chance of getting a clean pass on Michael than Michael had to get a clean pass on him. So it should be quite interesting. But as you say, he's certainly running out of time to close that back up again.
Yeah, Michael's just coming over the start-finish line now to begin the final lap of the race. And providing he can hold on to this, he'll be taking the win here of this first race of two. There will be a second one that follows. So make sure to hang around from that. And then we shall add up the points after those two races and come up with a preliminary finishing leaderboard. And then the official results will be posted early in the week, either on Monday or Tuesday, after we've reviewed any students' inquiries. We may see one or two pop up after this race. So it did seem to be a little bit of contact between a number of drivers. So it's entirely down to the drivers whether they want to post that student's inquiry. But yeah, there will be a second race that follows, and the best of two will be coming away with that grand prize of £1,500. And it looks like the Magic at the moment is managing to keep his nerve. He's got a little bit of space to Atho behind him, so he can back off just a little bit, but not too much, as Atho probably would close up fairly quickly. But Magic is coming. Sorry, Michael. I keep calling him Magic. Michael
He's had a magical performance, you could say.
He's coming over the start-finish line now to take the win for the first race. Atho will come home in second. Kyle in third place. And then Unity Biz will come home in 4th, Joker in 5th. Tijni has moved himself up into 6th place from 7th that he was before, popping himself ahead of Unity Smokey. TS Racing in 8th, and then Key coming in 9th, ODB in 10th, just ahead of Isaac, 21 in 11th place. Zoki coming up in 12th, Driver R1 coming up in 13th, and Okaroka coming up in 14th, and then as we saw earlier, Zach Speed TV retiring from the race will be positioned in 15th place. So, just take a look at the leaderboard so we can gather the final results. And then we'll get ready with setting up the second race. We'll be following with qualifying once again with 10 minutes this time at Brands Hatch. And then we'll be doing the second of the 15 lap races and bringing you the action from that. So bear with us in the meantime. It should be a short break between the two, but we'll be back in just a moment. Hello ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to the second race of this Ginetta X Project Cars Esports final for the PS4. We just finished with race 1 and we're now beginning the qualifying session for race 2, this time at Brands Hatch Indy.
Brands Hatch Grand Prix.
Brands Hatch Grand Prix, sorry, yes, the Indy is the short circuit. And we have all 15 drivers back once again in this lobby. And it was this guy here, Michael, who took the win of the previous race. And Atho came home in second with Car Eol in third place. So there was a little bit of drama that we saw at the start of the race, a couple of spins and a little bit of contact between a number of drivers. But Joe, how did you find that first race?
I thought it was a really good race. I think once it settled down, there was really close and relatively clean racing throughout the whole field. We had the little touch at the front, which was for the lead in the sort of about 2/3 of the way through the race, but it did look to me like Michael was alongside Atho there, and that perhaps Atho just hadn't quite spotted that he was that far alongside him. Maybe didn't give him quite enough room until a little bit too late in the move. So I'm not too concerned about that. Yeah, generally I thought the racing was pretty fair. I think what we're looking for in race 2 is consistency from the top 3 in the previous race, from Michael, from Atho, from Eol, to see if those guys are going to be up the front again, and if they're going to be up the front maybe in a different order, to see who's going to end up taking this win. And the interesting thing as well is if we do have equal points at the end, the winner will be the person with the best qualifying position.
Yeah.
Of the guys who came first, second and third on the in the first race, Atho qualified the furthest up the grid of the 3 of them, followed by Michael and then Eol.
Yeah.
So it's slightly different order to how they actually finished the race. If they finish on equal points, it might actually be Atho comes through to take the victory, but he's going to have to beat Michael on track to even get to that stage. So I'm expecting it to be tight again. The interesting thing will be if anybody who's a little bit further back, maybe they like Brands Hatch more than they like Walton Park, they're going to be slightly further up. That kind of thing happens, and that's going to mix things up a bit, and that could be really interesting.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously Atho had a pretty, like you said, the pretty strong qualifying last time round. So that's kind of, if he gets the win for this race and has another decent qualifying session, he should be in pretty good stead for that. For the moment, he's popped himself into 5th place. Obviously, it was his first flying lap, so it would have been more just a banker lap more than anything, just to get your time up on the board. But he's done a 1:23.999, and at the moment, it is Isaac who's got the 23.454. And is currently holding on to this provisional pole position for the moment. So slightly different track is Brands Hatch GP. It's a fair bit wider, so there's a little bit more room for cars to go side by side, and we've also got a few longer straights with some more sweeping high speed corners as well. So there's more opportunity for the guys to actually pick up some decent slipstream and try and use that to slip themselves past into the turns. So hopefully we'll see just as much, if not a little bit more action this time round for this second race.
How are we doing so far on our, we're about halfway through Polly now, how are we doing in terms of the leaderboard?
Yeah, so at the moment Isaac's still holding on to first. The guys have only really put 1 lap in so far, but Michael's got himself up into 3rd at this early stage. Atho's currently down in 7th. Zocchi's gone has once again gone and put himself up on pole. He started in pole in the previous race, but had a incident at the start, I believe, which dropped him down from that lead that he had. And just looking through, see any other drivers. Atho's gone and popped himself up into 5th, just behind Michael, who has just gone and done a 1:37.1 on his previous lap, so he hasn't improved on his fastest lap as of yet. TS Racing Racer has just come across the line now to do a 23.6 to pop himself up into 4th place. ODB on his previous lap was slightly slower than his fastest so far. His best lap was a 1:23.608. So a couple of these guys, even from the off, in their banker lap, has gone and pushed hard. Obviously with no tyre wear or fuel usage, and on the default setups, everyone's basically in exactly the same sort of conditions, and it is more or less just down to driver skill. We tried to make this as fair as possible for the drivers, and I believe most of the drivers are on a pad, sorry, on the wheel as well. I'm guessing there's none that really spring up that I can see.
I think we've got wheel users across the board.
Yeah, I don't really see any pad users. So currently just watching Zaxby TV, who retired from the previous race. He's currently holding on to 11th place at the moment. He's going to come across the line. Does improve, but only by a couple hundredths of a second. Still holding on to that 11th. Atho's down in 8th place as a number of drivers have been improving. That being, car driver R1 has popped himself up into 2nd place. That's quite interesting. The top 3 are less than a tenth of a second behind, so very, very tight at the very sharp end of the field. And looking at the split of the drivers, Okaroka, who hasn't really set what we'd call a competitive lap time relative to his pace. At the moment it's 2 seconds, just under 2 seconds slower, but he's now going to pop himself up into 13th. So the spread of the field at the moment is pretty much bang on a second. As Joker R1 comes across the line, but he does a 27.2, so he doesn't improve there. Guys have got just under 3 minutes with 2 minutes and 50 seconds to go, so
2 laps each maybe if they can keep it clean.
Yeah, there should be 2 laps each. And it looks like the guys have spread themselves out quite nicely and given each other plenty of room as well. All these laps I did see earlier on in the session that the guys coming down this straight here down towards the final turn were on the brakes and kind of spacing themselves out to give them the room for their qualifying laps. But currently just watching Tidney at the moment, coming along across the line in 13th. Doesn't look like he's improved on his lap. No, he wasn't. It was
Michael back up to 2nd there at the top.
Yep, just behind Zocchi, only 200ths of a second separating the two, so very, very close. We're seeing a number of times here changing. It looks like Michael as well has got a car just in front of him. See if we can find who that is. CarADB currently in the pits at the moment. Atho looks like he's picking up a slipstream of another Ginetta in front of him. I think he wanted to get past there, but he had to tuck back in, so that may have compromised his lap a little bit. This will be his final lap as well. He won't have enough time to do another flying lap after this one. So at the moment, Atho is qualifying down in 8th place, unless he can improve on his time on this lap. But with the Ginetta just in front of him, he now does move out of the way. May have compromised his lap a little bit too much, and he may not end up improving here. He's coming through the final turn now, heading across the start-finish line as he flicks up through the gears, comes across the line now, and his previous lap was a tenth of a second slower than his fastest lap, so he's not going to improve, and we'll be starting the grid on 8th place. Key coming across the line. He improves on his fastest and pops himself up into 3rd place. Magic is still there. Sorry, Michael is still there, running in 2nd. I really do need to stop calling him Magic, as the guys have corrected me on the stream a couple of times. So yeah, Michael in 2nd. Zocchi still holding on 1st. He's coming across the line as well in the last 20 odd seconds. Does he improve his time? It doesn't look like he did. No, 1:23.4, but a 23.3 is his fastest so far. Still very impressive lap time, and the top 4 are in fact within a tenth of a second, so very close racing between those drivers there. We'll just look further down the field to see all the drivers are within 1 second of each other. So there are the confirmed results. Just popping back up to the top. TS Racing Zocchi taking pole ahead of Michael, then Key in 3rd. Smokey, Isaac, ODB, Racer, Joker 1, Atho and EO will round out your top 10. And then a number of drivers down into 15th place. So, driver R1 is just disconnected from the session as well. Just seeing that pop up on the board there. Unfortunately, that's going to affect him in this race if that message board was actually correct. But now we're picking up the spectator cam, and it actually looks like a couple of drivers, a little bit of bumping each other in there further up the field. currently just picking up TS Racing Atheros. He's got himself up a position through the first turn and up into 7th. A little bit more contact there between a number of drivers. That was Caro DB. And it looked like Isaac, even more contact there at the back of the field as there's half spin between and one of the drivers. And there was some contact as well. It looked like Okaroka and who else was that? It looks like we have unfortunately lost driver R1, and it was EO who was involved with that earlier contact. Zach Speed at the moment currently holding in 10th place, looking to try and see if he can gain as many places as possible in this early phase. Just picking up Caro DB in 6th place as he's pretty close to the back of Atho there in 5th place. Atho obviously needs to get himself up through the field as quickly as possible to try and get himself the best chance of taking away the win in this final. And actually looks like that Michael's dropped down into 3rd place as Key has managed to get himself up into 2nd, with Zocchi holding on to the lead after getting a much better start in this second race, and has started to eke out a few car lengths or two as well. So much better start for him. And it actually looks like Michael's trying to have a little bit of a look down the inside of Key. Key giving him a little bit of room, but Michael wasn't quite able to slip his car up alongside, so Key ended up taking the apex of the corner like he usually would. The driver's taking an early apex and then bringing it back in tight again for the second part, which is a good line through that hairpin. But it looks like we've got a three-way fight for second place at the moment, with Michael in a sandwich between Key and Smokey. And then Afo in 5th place is closing up onto the back of these guys as well. Smokey looking a little bit wobbly there coming through the left-hander that leads onto the back straight. So that's going to cost him coming down on the run into this first of the fast 3 right-handers. Just picking up Michael now. He's got dropped back from Key a little bit, and it looks like Key's actually started to close up a tiny bit onto Zocchi just in front of him. Sorry, excuse me, while I just take a quick swig of water there. But yeah, Zocchi's still holding on to the lead. This time it looks like it's been a little bit cleaner between these drivers so far, but it does also look like there's a little bit of a spread starting to come out between a few of these drivers. Only a couple of car lengths, not much. So hopefully we'll see those gaps start to close up as the drivers settle into a rhythm. And we should see some great battling as Joker here. Looked like he was coming a little under threat a little bit from Isaac, who ran out a little bit wide. He's got Zach Speed, who's managed to slot himself up into 8th place, gaining a few positions in these early laps. Obviously he wants to make his way up through the field. He's actually got quite a big gap to Okaroka behind him. He's managed to get himself up ahead of EO up into 9th and 10th places respectively. And I believe that Tijni, Caro DB and Unity Biz have probably had a slight coming together along the line, somewhere along the line, considering how far these 3 drivers have dropped back, and both EO and Okaroka have managed to slot themselves up ahead. Just picking up Zach Speed now as he's wanted to slot himself up into 7th place, and is fairly close to Isaac 21, just in front of him. And just watching them come through now, the penultimate corner and down the back straight down towards the final turn. Drivers looking very quick, taking nice smooth clean lines, using the full width of the circuit. And coming across the start finish line, let's have a quick look at the lap times at the moment. Zocchi is currently holding on to first. He's done a 23.5, but actually looks like that Michael is starting to pressure Key a little bit, coming up the hill into turn 2 and then down into turn 3. So he's going to be very eager to try and stop himself past somewhere along the line in these early stages. And now coming onto the back straight. Looks like the drivers have had a pretty good exit coming out of that. Try and maximise their top speed coming down the hill, then flicking the car into this fast right-hander. Nice clean smooth lines, using the full width of the track and the curbs on the exit. There's a nasty curve on the exit there, so you want to avoid doing that one, which the drivers do as they continue on round. And then into the rather unsighted third of the 3 right-handers there. They're now just coming down towards the final turn once again, as we're just about to start the 5th lap of this race. So it's not been quite as much action that we've seen so far in this race. It seems to be happening off camera at the moment. Zach Speed still hunting to try and find his way past Isaac at some point. Looked like Isaac was going a little bit wide there. There's actually someone else going very, very wide between the two, trying to pick him up now. That was Joker. Ran onto the gravel. He did try to rejoin, but with the 2 cars coming very quickly up behind, thought slightly better of it, and then hung onto the gravel until the track was clear. Just a smart thing to do. Rejoined, he's dropped himself down into 8th place after that mistake. It's put Zach Speed and Isaac up into 7th and 6th places due to that mistake that he made there. So they drop down the hill once again. Atho still looks like he is in 5th place. He's got Unity Smokey there in front, and Michael is still very much pressuring the rear of Key, and Key for the moment holding his nerve.
Michael here needs to play a bit of a sensible game, I think. He's a couple of positions. He's got a car between himself and Atho, so in terms of championship points, Michael is going to take the win at the moment overall. So he's now got to think about how hard he wants to push in this race. Does he want to put more cars between himself and Atho and take the risks associated with that, or does he is he going to be able to find himself a comfortable spot here that he can sit in for the remaining few laps? Oh.
That was Unity Smokey there running wide through that first turn. That's going to allow Atho to get pretty close coming up into the second corner of this hairpin here that they're going through now. So the gap's closed up a little bit there, and it's actually played into Atho's favour, because I think Atho was dropping back just a little bit. Having a look at the times, yeah, he was just over a tenth slower on the previous lap. So the lap times are still very, very close between these drivers. And it's key for Atho here to get a decent run coming onto this back straight here. Looks like there's a car length or 2 between the 2 drivers at the moment, whereas Michael still looks to be very, very close to the back of Key in front of him. We saw in the foreground of the picture just then. Smokey has managed to rejoin onto the track without losing too much time. Obviously he's lost a little bit of momentum and a couple of car lengths to the guys in front, and has allowed Atho to close back up, but he hasn't lost any positions because of it. So fairly fortunate for Smokey there. So actually looks like Michael's having a little bit of a look at Key, obviously eager to try and get himself past. And it looks like he's got a pretty good run coming out of that final turn. Will he try and make a little bit of a move? Key going a little bit defensive initially to the inside, and then he moved back across to take the normal racing line. And actually that's Zocchi. He's going to have a spin somewhere along the line in the first turn. He's parked there on the outside. He's basically just waiting for a space to rejoin the circuit, but that's going to cost him the lead, and he's going to drop himself down into 8th place because of that one single mistake that was pretty much unforced by anyone. He had a little bit of space between him, but he's now actually dropped the position to Okaroka. He's got Eeyore behind him as well. He almost lost 9th place there, but he's going to drop down into 9th. He was 8th initially, but as he was getting up to speed, Okaroka managed to sneak his way past, and he's now locked in this 3-way fight for 8th place. It actually looks to be under threat from Eeyore as they come down the straight. Eeyore possibly having a little bit of a look down the inside. He doesn't. He's just going to stay in the slipstream and follow him through for the moment. But Okaroka in front having a slight moment. Zocchi did go to have a look down the inside, but wasn't really able to find the momentum to pull his car up alongside and try and make a move as of yet. But totally unforced error there, which is going to cost Zocchi big time. And despite getting pole in both the first and second qualifying session, he's lost the lead of the race. Obviously, we didn't see what quite happened to him exactly in the first one. That second one there wasn't any cars around him, so he must have just spun out by himself, and that's going to cost him big time. But he's got a pretty good run here. Having a little bit of a look down the inside of Okaroka and didn't quite manage to make it work. He's actually going to spun again. the second time on the second lap in a row, dipping his wheels onto the grass on the outside. And I believe that may have been him retiring there. He doesn't seem to be appearing anywhere in the leaderboards, and now Michael's actually gone and popped himself up into first place as he's managed to get himself past Key. And obviously with Zocchi's spins, that has gone and played very nicely into Michael's hands. Key currently holding second, Afo in fourth place, who's trying to threaten Smokey and try and take that final podium position away. He's only got, well, they're pretty much halfway through the race now, so only 7 laps remaining in this race. So he hasn't got an amazing amount of time to do it. As he actually goes and misses the apex there, running a couple of car lengths wide. And there's actually driver spinning off in the background. I think that may have been Isaac spinning around, made contact with the wall, obviously with no damage. It was Isaac with no damage. That wouldn't have affected him too much. He's rejoined just behind Joker in 7th place. Obviously Joker in 6th at the moment, who we've just picked up here. But a couple of the drivers, the concentration levels are starting to slip a little bit. The pressure's starting to settle in. And mistakes are starting to be made. At the moment though, Atho is still pressurising Smokey for that final podium position. Atho needs to do this as quickly as possible if he's in with any kind of chance of trying to take the win for this race. He looked a little bit tighter to the apex of the corner there. Providing he gets a decent run out of here and gets good momentum, he should have a pretty decent run. He got nice and close to the apex there on the inside and had a pretty decent exit. He's now picking up the slipstream. This is just where he needs to be patient. He's pulling out of that now to have a little bit of a look down the inside of Smokey, but due to this being a high-speed corner without much of a braking zone, you do need to have your nose alongside the car in front of you in order to warrant the space on the inside. And Atho wasn't quite able to do that. He wasn't quite able to get up close enough to pop his car alongside to try and make the move stick. But Michael at the moment looks to be visually pulling out a little bit of a gap to Key in 2nd place. So Michael looking relatively comfortable with what could be his 2nd win here if he can hold it together for the next 6 laps. But Joe, what do you make of the action so far in this 2nd race?
I think we did kind of speculate before we started this weekend that it would be interesting to see the top time trial guys and how they behave how they kind of mentally approach the races.
Yep.
It was obviously unfortunate to see Zoki make a couple of mistakes, but now it's Michael's destiny now, if you like, is in his own hands. So it's now whether he can keep his head in the game, not get overexcited, not drift off in concentration. He's just got to put his laps in now. But we know how quick Atho is, so if he can sort of unleash himself and get out of this little bottleneck he seems to have found himself in, stuck in 4th place for a little while now, but if he can get free of that, and he can push hard enough, it's still there for him with a few laps to go, but he's going to need to get through these guys ahead of him very quickly now, and he has been there for a while.
Yeah, he is certainly starting to run out of time in order to do that. Only 5 laps remaining in this race. And Michael is starting to pull out a little bit more of a gap to the drivers in front of him. You can see there he's 6/10 quicker than Key was on the previous lap. And you can see the gap is visually starting to increase between the 2 drivers as well. But Smokey still holding on to Key in front of him in 3rd. He hasn't really lost any sort of ground there. So in some ways, if Afro can get himself past Smokey fairly quickly, he hasn't got too far in order to close up onto the back of 3rd place. And you just see there the track map of where all the drivers are. And it looks like one of us, that'll be us, as in the pits. So we won't worry about that dot there. But yeah, very unfortunate that Zocchi had his 2 spins. I imagine they're probably very similar circumstances where he dropped the wheels onto the grass and both, as it's really the only real way that you can properly lose the car like he did coming into that first turn. So unfortunate errors there made by him, and he's disconnected because of that. And just watching this 3-way fight for 2nd place, it actually looks like Key is starting to come under pressure from Smokey a little bit. Smokey has visually closed up, gained a couple of car lengths on second place in front of him. Atho is still hanging there as well.
It could create an opportunity for Atho here if Smokey and Key get into it a little bit. It might open the door for him to go past both of them in one go.
Definitely.
It's possibly his best hope at the moment of getting through this little train and getting back onto chasing down, if there's enough time for him to chase down Michael at the front.
Yeah, there's only 3 more laps, 3 whole laps in which he can do it. So he needs this to happen pretty quickly, to be honest, if it is going to happen at any time soon. The drivers, these 3 looking pretty smooth so far, nailing their braking points and their apexes, getting pretty decent exits out of the corners as well. Just take a little bit of a look further down the field. Zakspeed TV's managed to get himself up into 5th place, so he's been doing some good overtaking off camera. Either that or capitalising on mistakes that other people have been making. But he's gained a whole bunch of positions from his qualifying, because he qualified outside of the top 10. But he's got himself up into 5th place, so very good job by him in this second race. Joker 1 is currently sat there in 6th, Vizak in 7th, and there goes Eol in 8th place, who was behind Zakspeed not too long ago. No, sorry, he was battling with Okaroka, who's in 9th place not too long ago. Car ADB in 10th, and we've got Tidgeny in 11th, and Unity Biz in 12th, and TS Racing Racer there in 13th place. And unfortunately, driver R1 disconnected right at the start of the session, and Zoki, as we know, has unfortunately left the lobby after a couple of mistakes. But jumping back up to the battle for second place at the moment, just about see Michael there popping up in the background of the screen as he continues to press on up ahead. Only 2 tenths was gained by him over Key on the previous lap, and their fastest lap times were again only about 2 tenths apart so far in this race. It's actually quite interesting to see that Key's fastest lap was the same as Michael's previous lap, completely identical. So it's good stuff there. Atho having a little bit of a look for 3rd place, so he knows that he needs to start really pressurising the guys in front to try and make up these couple of places, and he seems to be pretty closer than he has been in the last few laps for certain. So he'll be wanting to make a move as soon as possible, as he runs just a little bit shy there of the apex, but didn't really lose too much on the exit. We'll switch to a bumper cam here so you can see just how close he is to the drivers in front. And you can see the lines that he's taking, the guys being very, very smooth. A little bit of spit of flame from Smokey's car up ahead. But yeah, the guys following each other's slipstream, following each other's lines at the moment. And Atho quite a bit later on the brakes there, coming into the first turn, but a little bit deep as well.
Ooh, nearly into the gravel, very close.
Yeah, that's actually going to cost him a little bit of momentum there. Going through that with that slight mistake. It's just small mistakes like that can cost you quite dearly. Yeah, you can see he's lost a couple of car lengths visually when we jump to the off-board cams around the track. Actually looks like Smokey is getting a fair bit closer to Key, so he's had a pretty decent run coming out of there. He's going to be picking up the slipstream as you come down this back straight. Doesn't really seem like he's gaining all too much coming into the first of these 3 fast right-handers. A little bit tighter on the apex there. It didn't quite carry as much speed as Key in front of him. Avoid that curb there on the left on the outside, which both drivers managed to do. Now coming into the unsighted apex of this final turn. Both drivers nailing that, and coming into this very heavily cambered final penultimate corner. Quite a few corners around this Brands Hatch GP circuit have quite a bit of camber on them, which aids the car in coming in towards the apex. And you can see there he hasn't really lost too much time to Key, but Atho has managed to close the gap back up after the slight mistake on the previous lap coming through this turn. Atho looking a little bit squirrely there. And this time it was Smokey who dipped the wheel into the gravel, but it hasn't really lost him too much. But he's gone a little bit deep there coming into that hairpin. We are on the final lap as well, so very small amount of time in which to make any final positions And Smokey at the moment looking the better positioned out of him and Afo in order to gain a place, and he's actually got a pretty decent run there coming through that left-hander that leads onto this GP section of the circuit. Key going a little bit defensive, moving to the inside of the track there to cover the inside line, coming into this first of the 3 fast right-handers. Now coming into the second. Need to get a good smooth run through here. Smokey coming pretty close to the curb on the outside, but didn't really seem to make any contact with that. Managed to stay off it, hooking up the apex there as Afo is pretty close as well. So coming into the penultimate turn now, needs to get a decent run coming out of here, and it's a pretty much do or die moment coming down into this final corner. Will we see a dive bomb here? No, they're going to follow each other through for the moment, but Smokey tucking up right underneath the rear wing of Key as Michael will be crossing across, coming across the start finish line to take the win of the second race. Key will come home in second, just ahead of Smokey, and then Afo in 4th place. Zach Speed comes up in 5th, ahead of TSR Joker 1, and then SRT Isaac 21 coming home in 7th. Kaio in 8th, Okaraka in 9th, just ahead of Car ODB. Tishni came home in 11th, Unity Biz in 12th, and then TS Racing in 13th, the last man to come across the start finish line. So there is the final order of this second race, and we shall do some very quick calculations in just a second.
You say we, but you mean me, Matt.
Yes, Joe. Okay, Joe will be doing some very quick calculations to come up with the provisional final standings order. This won't be the official one, as if necessary we will have to review any incidents that the drivers submit. So we'll come up with the provisional standings for now, and then the official ones will be released on the Project Cars it's projectcarsesports.com. On the website there, we will be announcing who is the winner of this PS4 final. And of course, we do also have the Xbox Racing final to come, and also the PC final. The PC final will be tomorrow at 1 PM, and then we have the Xbox final will be today at 4:30.
Yeah,
4:30 GMT. So Joe's quickly just running his calculator up now and working out the order. But yeah, some good racing there by a number of drivers. Second race seemed to be a little bit cleaner than the first did. There was still a little bit of contact, a little bit of pushing and shoving here and there from some of the drivers. But the pace by these drivers has been absolutely exceptional. Really, really good high level pace. But we do now have the final standings order as Joe has managed to work these out. So coming up in first place, winner of both races was Michael, just ahead of TS Racing. Atho in second. They had 50 points for Michael, 30 for TS Racing Afo. Unity Smokey came up in third with 21 points, just ahead of Car Key with 20 points. Car EO came home in with 19 points in fifth place. Then TS Joker won in sixth with 18 points. Unity Biz was in seventh, just ahead of Car Sack Speed TV. Then Tijni, Isaac, TS Racing Racer, Car ODB, VP Okaraka, TS Racing Zoki, who got pole position for both races, and then Car Driver R1 will be your final 15th placed driver. But yes, keep an eye out on the website projectcarsesports.com for those final official results. You can see the points breakdown there as well when the results do get released. But other than that, been fantastic racing from this PS4 final for the Ginetta X Esports Project Cars Cup, and we shall be back, both myself and Joe, at 4:30 PM UK time, that's GMT, for the Xbox finals with exactly the same format, same same cars, same tracks, and we'll be providing you the action with there. Joe, any final words?
Yeah, I thought it was really good. I was really, having been reading the chat while we've been racing, I didn't know who Michael was particularly coming into this, but reading the chat, he's very big in the esports scene. Generally, people seem to have had quite high expectations from him, so I'll certainly be watching him from now on. I may not have seen him so much in Project Cars before, but he'll definitely be a name I'll be keeping an eye on.
Yep.
And I think generally, apart from some issues at the starts, I think the racing for the most part was quite fair. And just looking forward now to see what the next guys can do on Xbox later today, and then tomorrow we've got PC as well. So yeah, just looking forward to the rest of the racing, really.
Excellent. Well, Michael's certainly making his mark in this PS4 final. Xbox One, once again, 4:30 p.m. UK time will be today. So make sure to tune back in for that, and we'll see who will be coming out on top for that final. But otherwise, thank you very much for tuning into the stream, guys. We appreciate you guys watching and getting involved in the chat. So hopefully we'll see you back then. But in the meantime, from myself and Joe, take care and have a good afternoon.